Greetings, heathens and witches. I'm Jonathan Norgrove. We've got Julie Norgrove here. Totally bad at remembering how these intros go. It's fine. We'll get there, guys. We're young. We're friends. Anyway, you are on the Horn
and Cauldron podcast.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're back at it again, guys. Same bat time. It's a different time every time. But it's the same bat channel. So today we're talking about Spellcraft 101. So we're just going to give a little intro to doing spells and stuff.
Yeah, and before we get started, just full disclosure, sorry for all of the coughing. We were recently diagnosed with COVID, and I have had a pretty wicked cough.
Yeah, she's had a cough the whole time.
Yeah. So apologize.
We're
for
fine
all that.
now.
We're fine now.
Yeah.
But this cough is definitely still lingering. So apologies if you guys are listening.
Yeah, if you're listening, you're gonna get some coughs. It'll be fine.
I'm gonna do my best. Yeah. I got cough drops, and I got tea, and I got some wine, which I can't taste any of this stuff, but whatever. Yeah. And we're just gonna get started. So, what is spellcrafting?
What is spellcrafting?
I mean, really, it's the art of creating your own spell from start to finish. There's a lot of ways to do it, and I mean, really, no one way is like the right way or the wrong way.
Yeah, spell is one of those. The way that I look at it is, spell is, and spellcraft is sort of a disambiguous word. You can mean it in so many different ways. I mean, think about like books you've read that have had spells in them, and how each book spells are a little different. You know, so there's no wrong way to do spells. And obviously, we are not experts at anything. We are just two assholes in front of a camera, or inside of your head, if you're listening to this. But
or outside of your head,
or outside of your head if you're hallucinating this. Maybe you're hallucinating us. What do I look like in your hallucinations? Don't answer that question. I can only imagine that it's not going to be friendly. You know what? Never mind. Tell me. But yeah, so there's no wrong way to do this, and you know, we're just going to kind of give you an overview. This is a 101, so this is kind of like a broad strokes overview. A lot of the details in this we're actually going to go over in future podcasts.
That are separately
dedicated.
Yeah.
And of course, if you ever have any questions or anything like that, just reach out to us on social media, at Jive and at Goddess Jules. Yeah. And yeah, reach out to us. We're always more than willing to help out. And if we don't have an answer, we're more than willing to help you find it, and then meet back with everybody and talk about it like this, because discovery is really the purpose of life, isn't it? I mean,
and even though this is like a 101, you know, like intro to...
Yeah, this is really intro to spellcrafting.
There's really nothing that makes it so that it's not also valuable information for somebody who's been practicing for a while.
Yeah, sometimes we forget a little bit, and certainly there's always space to learn and develop. And that's part of spellcrafting is the evolution thereof and therein.
I've been practicing 30 years, and there's new stuff that I learn all the time.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, we all have those vague baby witch understandings that persist sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. We'll move into the first thing.
Yeah, we'll
Let's
jump
finish
into
vamping.
It. So the first thing we're going to talk about is different types of spells. So there's really a few categories of spells that make up like types of spells, and then they just like branch wildly out. So the first type of spell that we're going to talk about is spells based on words. So word spells.
Using words for spells.
Using words. I mean, most people are familiar, I think, with this trope where like you cast a spell and, you know, it's like the candles flicker and the wind goes, and you're saying all this like really, like, you know, either it's like in another language and you don't know what it is, or it's like super
poetically beautiful spell, nonsensical.
And like when I was a baby witch, secret time, when I was a baby witch, I thought that all spells had to be either written in poetry where they like rhymed at the end, or that they had to be written in like a dead language like Latin. So fun fact, I also took like 4 semesters of Latin, a million years ago, so I don't remember any of it. But clearly there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. So
Yeah, sorry for the clicking.
So you don't have to do only the poetic thing or only the Latin thing.
Yeah.
Although I certainly thought that that's what you needed to do. So really a lot of spells are meant to be written down and recited later.
Yeah. Well, so when you think about word spells, right? And I know this is 101, but sometimes it's good to just think this stuff through. So obviously you have spoken spells, right? Limericks, or even just assertions of intention. Arguably that what is that, the little train that could, or whatever the heck story,
I think I can.
where he's saying like, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. That
like
can be considered a spell, right? So sometimes those self-affirmations we give ourselves in the morning or before a job interview or before we are about ready to do something incredibly dangerous for the grams, as it were. Those are spells in their own right. There's obviously also spells that you write down like in a book, like a spell book, and then you read out loud all mystically with the wind in your hair and such. Those are also spells. But there are also spells that you write down that have never have any intention of being read aloud, right? And it's just whatever you've written down, whether that's a poem or a limerick or several assertions or a sheet where you're repeating the same thing over and over again. I've seen spells like that.
Yeah.
And whether that's meant for posterity in a book or for destruction later or for whatever. I mean, all of that words-based thinking is really what we're talking about with regard to spellcraft with words.
Yeah, so I mean, really, like, the sky's the limit. Like, they don't have to rhyme unless you want it
There
to.
are no hard rules.
They don't have to be in another language unless you want it to be.
And you understand the language enough to make sure that what you're saying is actually the right thing. Don't just
Very
Google
important.
some shit. Google translating spells is
Yeah, don't
you're asking for some stuff to not work right because Google translates an asshole. That's what that is.
And they don't have to necessarily be long or short. Like there's this trope of it being, like really long and stuff. So
Big long thing you got to read before the thing gets you. It can be a single word if you want, man. It can be whatever you want it to be. Mm-hmm. All right.
I actually saw a really interesting way to do like a spell where you take your intention and you mix up the letters, so if your intention is like, I am powerful or, whatever, you take all the letters and you mix them up into a different phrase that does not sound like I am powerful, but when you say it, it's like an incantation. Mm-hmm. So that's a really neat thing to do.
Scrabble spells. Yeah,
okay. Scrabble spells.
I've heard. Okay, so the way that I've seen that done is you get whatever you're gonna write out. You write it out in Scrabble pieces, right? And then you kind of like mix them around. I've even seen people flip them upside down and choose them, like as you're feeling it out in whatever order it comes out in, and then that like reordered sentence is the spellcraft that you want to use, Scrabble spells, because they have little letters on top. It's just it's a thing that I've seen talked about before.
It's pretty fun. I definitely want to experiment a little bit
it's
more
certainly
with that.
It's certainly cool.
Feels very,
you can make shit
like,
just sound sci-fi. And I love sci-fi.
It sounds very like fantasy novel.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you can do a lot of stuff with words, obviously, but that's actually the smallest section that we really have.
Yeah.
So the next thing we want to talk about is symbols and sigils. So some spells incorporate using symbols or sigils as a part of them, and some spells are all about the sigil itself. So some of them have a component and some of them solely are comprised of the symbol itself. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about this, much like everything, and we keep saying this, I know it's a broken record, but this is our like hashtag, it's whatever you want it to be, if you see a symbol or a sigil out there that you like, research it, and if that works for your intentions, go ahead and use that. Runes and imagery from like tarot and oracle decks are a really good example of symbols and even sigils that you didn't make yourself.
Yeah.
So you can certainly do
obviously
something like that.
Always do research, but your sigil doesn't necessarily need to have historical ties. You can just functionally make them up. Because I do abstract art, I am incapable of drawing a human face with any detail. Like, from memory, that's just not how my brain works. I do, like, abstract symbolic and, like, color art, because, you know, I'm crazy or something. And, the art that I did for, November... Inktober, that's the one. November was NaNoWriMo. For Inktober last year, a lot of it started moving into, like sigil craft work, because I started including like tarot symbols and like runic symbols and stuff like that, and we started kind of I started kind of getting in this groove with sigil creation. So like it doesn't necessarily have to have historical meaning, and also you know, don't be afraid of ignoring the haters is the way that I'm going to put it. Especially with rune work, there are people online who
are very loud about wanting to talk about how runes are not
purely historically a written language and not magical, and how it's all like 90s Celtic farce or whatever the heck. Whatever they're saying is what I mean. But if you use runes and you follow rune work, and I use runes, I make my own runes. I've actually never bought a set of runes, surprisingly. I manufacture my runes. But like if you buy runes or you manufacture your runes and that's what you want them to use, yeah, sort of. I have rune tarot cards. Like rune cards are super rad. But like if that's what you want your belief to be, then that's okay, and sort of just like ignore the haters that are like, there's no pure form historical accuracy based on this blah 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 blah, and it's like, okay, cool. You know, I'm not saying like take a symbol and turn it into something else. That's not what I'm saying. But you know, like don't be afraid to use a thing.
Just because you want to use
use a thing.
Again,
if it's a tattoo, do research first.
Yeah.
If you think that research is enough, find somebody else who has the research to judge you, because tattoos are forever. I have a lot of them.
There's that joke about the Japanese kanji that means soup.
Yeah, don't get soup tattooed. Unless you like soup, then get soup tattooed, dog. I'm not hating on soup lovers.
I mean, that being said, you can also make your own sigils, and this is something that I've only recently gotten into in the last few years for my own magical practice. And there's a much like everything else, there's a lot of ways to do it. You just got to find a way that you want to do it. I've seen ways that have a grid where you use a grid for the letters of the alphabet, or there's several letters. You can do it like how those little paper foldable games.
Yeah, totally.
And another really common way to do it is to write out the intention of your spell and then cross out any duplicate letters. And now you get to like arrange the letters in such a way where they create an image that makes you feel like it's serving the purpose of your spell. A lot like how you would create like a bind rune per se. You're just sort of like merging everything into one.
On bind runes, if you're going to do a bind rune, the best way to think about it is stacking letters, right? Runes are very simple, straight line sort of letters. So you just sort of you write a letter and then write a letter on top of it and write a letter on top of it and write a letter on top of it. You can make lines connect. You can have multiple lines. You can rotate those letters around an axis, right? That's very common for the like wheel style runic symbology and such. You can kind of do whatever you want. I've seen them like moved about in a grid network, like in a grid space kind of a thing.
You can also place them inside of like a circle or a double circle.
Yeah, exactly. So you can kind of do whatever you want. It's funny. I've almost always done sigil work with newly created sigils that I created. For me, sigil work has always been creative in my way and never been like replicative or duplicative until recently, when I've gained enough knowledge to know like what symbols I want to use and what symbols I don't. And I still a lot of the tattoos that I have are symbols that I have created myself. Some of the symbols that I created myself that I have tattoos of and that I use in a lot of my work are I've been drawing since like middle school.
Yeah.
Right? It's a sigil that has followed me since middle school. And I, and like the runes carved in the front post of the house and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff I've done myself because for me that's that creativity that creativity side of it, create your own sigils. But that's definitely not everybody's path, obviously. Yeah. And I think that if you think that you want to create your own sigils, give it a try. You know what? Worst case, you draw something out, you're like, this is kind of dumb, and then you just tear it up, throw it away.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many torn up, thrown away pieces of art I have in my lifetime.
It takes me a while to find the sigil that carries the energy to me that I want it to.
Well, yeah, sure, of course. And like all muscles, practice makes perfect. So if you want to do sigil crafting and sigil work, or spellcrafting and spell work, in fact, do it with repetition. Write spells. And it's okay to write a spell and be like, I don't like this spell, and then just throw it away and rewrite a new spell. Right?
No, don't throw it away. You want to hang on to the thing that you did.
If it's something that you want to hang on to. I mean, if you design a sigil or you craft a spell and you're just like, all right, this is 100% not what I'm feeling. This was a complete failure. Don't be afraid to just start from scratch.
I mean, yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. If it's good,
definitely
dude,
start
keep
from
that
scratch,
shit.
But I think that you should write down what it is that you're doing.
Oh, yes.
That way you know for later. So don't just throw it away and tear it up or whatever. So next are spells that are more physical, really, because we've been talking about this abstract idea of using words and symbols and stuff, and while those can be written and put to paper,
this physical stuff's also abstract. Don't.
The physical stuff is also abstract, but it's in a different way.
Yeah, this isn't like throwing fireballs, guys. That's not secret time.
I think the most popular physical spell, right now, is jar spells. Jar spells are super common. I'm seeing them everywhere.
They're hot.
And
jar spells are hot right now.
It's really cool because jar spells can do so much, and there's so many ways that you can really think about putting together a jar spell that it makes it very easy to do. Yeah. It doesn't matter what stuff you have access to, Let's
be honest. The many number of ways to do things that we're talking about are that you can make any sounds with your head. You can make any picture received into your eye holes, and you can do any physical motion for it to count as a spell if you really think about it.
I mean,
right?
Yeah, that's a weird way to say that.
No, but understand the amount of freedom you have. If your sigil is non-logically runic and you want it to be Jackson Pollock color splatters and stuff, that's you, dog. Do it. Live your best life, 100%. Right? If you want to, like how kids make up fun languages, if you want to, make up a magical language for your practice, then, rock and roll. Do it, right? Do your spells in that. If you want to practice jar spells or some other physical spell, and we'll get into more physical spells, right? Do them. There's no limit. So I say this all the time. Don't build up barriers within yourself. Don't limit yourself. Everybody else is going to try to limit you. You should approach this from a purely free sense, right? You can do whatever you want. That's why we keep repeating this, there's so many ways you can do this, and there's so many ways you can do this. And it's because, when you really think about it in, a kind of clinical sense, anything and everything can be a spell if you so choose it to be in your life, right? You make your own magic.
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain that's a Disney shirt or something.
I don't know. Perhaps we should make that shirt.
Maybe that's our shirt.
So that's definitely our shirt.
Hashtag you make your own magic, dogs.
Jar spells. Jar spells, you take whatever stuff is for your intentions of the spell, and then you put it into the jar.
Yeah. You put spell ingredients in jar.
Seal the jar. And
it's
then
in the title.
That is it. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be a jar. It could be a bottle. There's a lot of those cute little necklace bottles that you can buy online. You can use an old mason jar. Yep. You can use a bottle of hot sauce that you
particularly like. Yeah.
That you particularly like. You can do a jar spell. Yeah, you could use a box. You can use a lot of different things. A jar spell is just kind of that thing. And you see that when you see the jar spells, they're usually artfully put together, and they have beautiful wax dripped all over them. And your jar spell doesn't have to be that way, unless you really want it to be.
Listen. The first time, if you've never done one, it's not gonna be. Let me tell you what. dripping wax artfully on a jar is...
It is easier said than done.
Yeah, it is.
Sure.
Sometimes it is not as easy as you would think it is. And, like, I make my own candles. I can control precisely at what temperature the wax flows. And sometimes you're still just like, this is not how I wanted this to be.
So once you've made your jar spell, the real question is, like, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Jar spells are usually spells where your energy is released over time, or
time
sort of
spells.
perpetual. They're sort of like time-released spells, much like those little Glade plug-in.
Yeah, jar spells. They're like Glade plugins for witches.
And so they are, though. And sometimes...
It's another shirt! Now, Glade would probably hunt us down and kill us.
And sometimes your jar spell is done and it runs out.
Big
so,
air freshener.
like, I've done all manner of jar spells. Ones where you put on your altar to remind you constantly of the magic that it's giving out. Ones that you, like, hide in a corner. We've buried a few in our yard.
If you're gonna bury something, you bury it in a place where you know where you're gonna bury it, where something isn't gonna dig it up, and where you're not gonna hit a glass jar with a shovel and make a bloody, glassy mess in your yard, where you're gonna cut up your hands or possible animals or some nonsense like that. If you're gonna do a jar spell, what I recommend is, if it's a glass jar, put it in a raised pot with a plant. That's what we've done. It's in a raised pot with a plant. We know exactly which plant it's in. If you're going to do a jar spell with the intent of burying it for all of eternity, then you make your ingredients and the package you put the ingredients in biodegradable.
Out of paper or
brown paper
cloth.
bag. Banana
But only
leaves
cotton, banana
are
leaves.
really good, or palm leaves, like the big banana leaves you can get, or like corn husks. You can get a lot of that kind of stuff for like rehydrating, for wrapping in the Mexican section of the supermarket. I've legit seen this stuff on I think it was on r/heathenry maybe, or somewhere, where they were just where they were talking about that.
Walnut shells.
Walnut
are
shells,
also really good.
if you have a little one, bury it with something organic and make sure none of the ingredients are non-organic. Let's not make it worse out there, guys.
Yeah.
The world is not doing so
Above
well.
all, with all of these spells, if it's a time release spell and if it's a physical spell, be sure that when you are discarding of your spell ingredients, whatever those things are, or if you're leaving offerings, which I know that we're not really going to talk about in this, but we'll talk about it at a later date.
Yeah.
Be sure that you are disposing of them responsibly. You are presumably either an adult now or will be an adult in the future. Use your common sense and make sure that you're not poisoning the world around you. So if you have a
That's
jar
obviously
spell,
not good.
you can dispose, when it's done, some people like to break it up and dispose of the components separately. That's fine. You can do that. But regardless of how you dispose of the contents of your jar, or whether the jar is still fully intact, don't throw the jar in the river. Don't leave it out in the woods for some sort of animal to try and eat and choke on. It's very important that whenever you do magic, you also exercise common sense. And in this case, we're talking about disposing of spell things. I've had people ask me what to do with a physical spell when they're done with it. And honestly, what I do when I'm done with a jar spell or a physical spell is I wrap it up and I throw it in the trash. And then the trash goes outside for garbage day, and then the garbage man comes and picks it up, and then it goes to a landfill. Yes, landfills aren't great, but at the same time, that is the safest place for this type of spell if you're not going to be dismantling it one piece at a time.
Yeah, or unless all your ingredients are biodegradable.
Exactly.
If you do your jar spells with biodegradable ingredients, you can pour it in your compost pile. Right? If your jar is just full of water and leaves, different plant leaves, right? It's called herbs. Then just pour it in your compost pile. It becomes part of your whole garden. It's back in the cycle. Don't make a mess of the earth. That's the TLDR of this. Let's keep the earth healthy. Also, with regard to physical spells, and it's not on our list, but physical movements, we've all seen well, maybe not all of us. If you haven't, it's in some animes. I was going to say we've all seen animes where people are doing hand movements. But they're physical hand movement spells. There's obviously, everybody's heard the term, rain dance, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's also, like, dancing spells where, like, the movements of your body represent the spell or what have you. You know, there's meditative spells where, like, the position you put your body in to focus on the spell is the spell itself. So, like, again,
You got a lot of
literally anything is possible to be a spell.
Yeah.
Don't poison the earth, and ask for consent. Because sex can also be spells. Sex magic. Whole thing we'll get into at a later date. We're not even going to talk about it here. It's not even on the bloody list.
Yeah, but
I totally forgot
sex
about
magic is a very powerful form of magic and a very fun one.
Yeah. Do your research.
So
Get consent. Let's all be responsible adults here. This is a responsible adult place.
yeah, if you have any questions, we actually do a lot of sex magic. So just ask.
Yeah, we're a community.
Happy to
we're
happy
friends.
to
We
give you
share.
guys info.
Yeah.
Now, one of my favorite types of spell are spells where you burn things. I definitely feel like I have an affinity for the element of fire. And I really like to do spells that are burning spells. And much like we were just saying with the disposal of the jar spells, you have to be careful that if you choose to burn anything at all, if anything's being lit on fire, whether it's a candle or a piece of paper or a stick of incense, you need to be safe. Fire can get very out of control very quickly. And that is certainly not how you want your spell journey to be, is starting a fire.
No.
So, but fire spells can feel very powerful. And they really sort of break down into two avenues of spells. So fire spells really take two directions. So one is candle spells, and the other one is everything else.
Yeah.
So candle spells are a lot like jar spells, only you're using the candle itself to help power the spell. And these can be a time release kind of spell, but not always the case. So usually what you do is you take the candle, you can carve it if you wish to express your intentions, either with actual words on the candle or with sigils or symbols that you have found. And then the candle is usually dressed with oils and then rolled in herbs. And then the candle is burned either each time you need the power of the spell or is burned until its entirety. And then that essentially
Closes
pushes
the
the
circle.
spell.
It finishes the spell.
it finishes it out.
Also, if you don't know how to dress a candle in oil and rub it and roll it in herbs, do your research on it. Maybe we'll do a YouTube video of that for a Mirkfadime vlog. But yeah, don't just willy-nilly with fire. Remember, fire dangerous. You're not fireproof. Like, come on.
Fire is dangerous.
You know.
And then another type of burning spell that you can use besides candles is burning a piece of paper that has your spell or intentions on it.
Or burning a thing
like
that
a
you're trying to
leaf.
release the energy
It's-
from
yeah.
or of, which we do
Yeah.
often in our rituals. Well,
Yeah.
when we can have rituals.
Yeah, we can't have them right now because
of the Rona.
The Rona, but
Yeah.
usually spells where you're burning something are to get rid of or to release that thing from you. It's usually getting rid of negative activities or ideas in your life. But they're really fun. I really enjoy burning spells. One of my favorite burning spells is to write something on a leaf, and then you burn the leaf, and then that does the thing. If you do that on a bay leaf, which we live in a forest that has lots of bay trees, so they're everywhere, is you write your wish on a bay leaf, and then when you burn it, it comes true.
Yeah.
And you can find bay leaves in just like the culinary section.
Yeah, you go to the grocery store, you buy bay
Of
leaves. They're not
the
even that.
grocery store. It's a pretty fun one, and it's a nice, easy kind of one. But again, if you're burning something, make sure you're doing it safe.
Yeah.
Another fun thing that you see with spells, particularly in movies, is like amulets or like jewelry that's like the magic ring or that sort of thing. Like the locket goes on and she falls asleep, she can't wake up.
Yeah.
And you can do that yourself too. So it's really kind of two places, amulets and jewelry, right? So an amulet is typically something that has that's like a tiny, tiny little jar spell, but not necessarily in a jar. The simplest form is to put your spell items into a small cloth pouch, and then that pouch goes with you wherever you're going when you
you just wear it around your neck or in your pocket.
You wear it around your neck or in your pocket or however you want to handle that. So that's an amulet. Now you can also use jewelry too. So you can also enchant your own jewelry, or of course you can make jewelry that is for the intention that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Now. Yeah. With amulets and with jewelry, especially with jewelry, the jewelry is something that you're going to want to wear more for the long term. So with something like that, you're probably going to want to be charging that spell again. So whatever spell you're doing.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back. Okay, so that's what an amulet is.
Yeah, and you do want to charge an amulet from time to time, just because it's something, you're going to want to be wearing that cool ring that you got for like a while. So, you would just basically redo that spell when you feel like it needs more of that energy.
Yeah, and amulets can, of course, be both. Amulets and jewelry can both be purchased and charged with intention, or created and charged with intention. Either way, charging with intention is important, but you don't necessarily have to, like, make your own pretty thing. If you can't make it, that's fine.
Someone else can make it for you.
Yeah, like I don't know how to work silver to make a beautiful ring. I'm not a ringist, whatever the hell those people are called, a jeweler. Right? Like I can carve some shit out of wood, but I can't do that. So I would purchase something from somebody, and that's perfect. That's exactly as reasonable as anything else. Right? Okay, so next up is kitchen witchery.
Yeah.
Right? Which is also super hot right now. Everybody's super hot for kitchen witchery.
Kitchen witchery spells are, I feel like, so underrated, and I love them so much.
Yeah.
So, obviously this is another type of physical spell, and the basic is that you can craft your meal with magically inclined herbs and imbue it with your intention.
With magical intention.
And you can even use like runes or sigils to add extra power to it.
I mean, guys, what was I saying?
Yeah.
Even eating food can be magic.
Yeah. And again, whatever you're adding, make sure it's safe to eat. Don't eat stuff that's not supposed to be eaten, guys. Don't eat things you shouldn't eat.
Don't eat rocks.
Don't eat rocks. Don't eat poisonous things.
I'm talking to the people that think that you can eat rocks. Don't eat rocks. You know who you are. Don't eat rocks. We were just recently talking about this bloody people talking about eating selenite.
Yeah.
No.
There's people out there who
don't do it.
Grind up selenite and use and sprinkle it on food and eat it. Now selenite is a rock, and it has lots of tiny little particles in it, and you don't want to eat that stuff.
Yeah.
So just do your due diligence and make sure that whatever you're eating is something that you should in fact be eating.
Yeah. And if you read an article online, and it doesn't matter who wrote it and how fancy it sounds, if you read an article online about a thing that your common sense is telling you is maybe like a little weird, find another article. Read the stuff that's against it and come to like a sane person conclusion, because you can't do spells if you're in a hospital dead. So
and we certainly don't want that for anyone.
Yeah, and we don't want nobody to get hurt. So like think things through, use common sense, and I mean seriously, don't eat rocks.
Yeah.
That's so obvious.
Unless those rocks are salt, because salt is a rock. And salt is delicious.
Yeah.
Just don't eat too much.
You can only eat salt.
Obviously. But kitchen witchery is really fun, because if you are in the broom closet or, wanting to do maybe something different than
or in a space where you can't
you're in a space where you kind of can't really practice like that, make yourself a meal. I'm going to talk about these protection tacos again. So, like when you
we're gonna do a Merc Vidime vlog about this. Don't worry, guys.
We were gonna do it, and then we got sick, and everything's been haywire, and we did not have the food in the house to be able to do that.
TLDR about being sick is that you are left with the things that you have, and don't get me wrong. We have enough things, but we don't have the specific things to make tacos. Yeah. So that was a non.
So if you want to make protection tacos, my favorite thing to talk about, because I love tacos, you basically are going to make your meat or meat replacement, whatever it is that your thing is that you do, and then you're going to want to combine that with some spices that mean protection, and some things that do that are lime and cumin and lettuce are all herbal type things that you can use that are known for protection.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
Salt,
cool.
obviously.
Yeah. So, obviously, again, do your research. But as you're cooking it, you can use, as you're stirring your meat, you can draw your sigil. You can draw runes in the pan. You can just meditate on how you're going to feel once you've eaten that food, and as you're eating it, that's really kind of what you'll do. We'll do a whole thing on kitchen witchery.
Yeah.
But now that you've got an idea of what ways, and this is really just a small snippet of the ways that you can cast a spell.
On this, before we get out of kitchen witchery real quick, Julie does, when she makes pie, she'll do like the crust. She'll like, you got to put a couple of cuts in the crust. Sometimes she'll cut like a rune into the crust, which is a nice way to do a little kitchen witchery. Or if you're doing like she did a apple something or other one time.
Yeah.
Where the like lattice work, each one of the little like dough strips she carved runes into, and then like baked the whole thing. Also, it makes your food look cool.
It really makes your food look cool.
Really, aren't we all doing everything to be cool, man? Right? Like, so
I'm
like
already cool. I don't know about you.
Yeah, don't listen to her. Yeah, it's not true.
Anyway, now that you've got an idea for some of the ways that you can cast a spell, and you've kind of decided like what of that you want to incorporate.
What type of spell you want to do.
Now you can start your research. And research is the most important piece of spell crafting. To start, you want to look at spells that other people have done for ideas. And you can look at spells specifically for whatever your intention is. So if you're trying to do a money spell, you can look at other people's money spells. You can look at that. But you don't necessarily have to look at only people's money spells. Perhaps somebody wrote this really cool love spell, and you can think of some ways to sort of change that into something that you want. What I'm not telling you to do is to steal other people's work. What I am telling you to do is to look at what other people have done and incorporate things that you like into your own practice, thereby making your own style.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There's a thing in martial arts that I grew up with where it's like once you do it like 1,000 times, it becomes yours. And the sort of TLDR of that, and we'll get into that at a later date also. But the sort of TLDR of that is, like if your intention is to do a specific thing, right? And the research that you do and the training that you get teaches you a specific way to do it. At a certain point in time, you may change an inflection, you may change a word, you may change the whole thing in its entirety, but at a certain point in confidence, you find a way to do it yourself. And your way, and that's kind of what we're talking about. As a solid example, if your craft is especially specific or not incredibly common or popular at the moment, you may have difficulty finding research about your craft or in ways in which others in your craft practice. But what you can do is you can be inferred by and informed by other practices. If you are practicing a very specific sort of shamanism and you see how this other sort of shamanism does their work and that's interesting to you, you can include the sort of logical structure of that or the manner in which they're doing that thing in your thing. And it's the same with spell work, and it's the same with anything, is sort of like do research, learn, but make sure that you're doing your own thing. Because again, there's an infinite number of ways to do these things, so like your specific infinite is purely yours, celebrate that. You know?
Absolutely.
It's kind of what we're trying to say, I guess, maybe vaguely.
And I'm really into magical correspondences. That is, I have a huge database of magical correspondences, and it is the most exciting part of writing a spell for me, is looking up all of the things that are magical correspondences. I have it color-coded. In fact, I have it color-coded in
Explain what a magical correspondence is.
So a magical correspondence is if you're looking for a protection spell, again, then you would want to look up what things generally mean protection. So you're looking at herbs and plants, and you're looking at stones, and you're looking at colors and symbols and animals and deities and those sorts of things. So correspondences, you take the thing that you want, and then you're looking to see what items correspond with that intention, with that
correspond,
purpose.
Correlate, Coraline.
No, that's a movie.
That is a movie. That's a different thing.
That's a totally different
Unless
thing.
Coraline corresponds, then there you go. That's your correlation.
Oof, boy.
Let me know if that made any sense, because I think it
Just
did.
don't tell Coral.
Don't tell Coral. Coral.
So my favorite thing is to research the correspondences, and I have things
she does really
color-coded.
love
I
all
really
of
do.
that.
I don't. It's something about it, and I have it color-coded to things that I have these lists color-coded with herbs and stones and stuff like that to things that I have on hand, like things that I always have on hand. Like garlic is not necessarily for protection, although it can be, and that is a particular color because I know I always have garlic on hand. And some things are like, okay, well, I don't, it's color coded like bananas are for like male fertility magic, and I have those color coded. I have things like that color coded in a different color because it's not something that I always have on hand at the house, but it's something that I can easily get.
Yeah, like you just go to the store, you pick up some bananas.
Yeah. So you want to now look up your correspondences for your spell's purposes. So if we go back to our protection tacos, we're looking at everything that's protection.
Yeah.
Or if you're wanting to do a money spell, you want to look for all the things that correspond with money. And really the key here is you want to look and see what's recommended. And what I do is I write them all down. It is a hugely absurdly long list.
Oh my god, yeah. Anything you can think of, there's a million things that correspond to it. And then you choose the things that are you have available to you.
And then you further narrow that down to what you want to use. So with protection,
and what's available.
Just for herbs, it was this list of like 50 things. And I narrowed it down to like probably a good 30 things that I had either easy access to or already had on hand, and then was like, okay, this is still too many things. So then I narrowed it down to the manner in which I wanted to make the protection tacos spell. So all of that edible type stuff. You'd really be surprised what you've already got on hand or what you can very easily get, especially for those of you that are still in the broom closet. Like if you're afraid of other people in your household knowing that you're casting protection tacos, they don't need to know that you're making protection tacos. You're just making tacos to them.
Well, and don't lie about magic. But if you're trying to make yourself protection taco dinner and somebody's just like, "Hey man, what are you doing over there?" You're just making tacos. Right? Like, you don't have to have, like, you can't see them. I have big head tattoos. And, like, if you don't want people to know about that, or you gotta whatever about that, then there's also ways to do it where you don't need big head tattoos to do your thing.
Yes.
Right? This is a life choice.
That's
that's
true.
forever. That's why they're called tattoos. But totally. It's sort of like, do you want to win a beer drinking contest? Well, then you should probably drink the urine of a goat on a roof. If you can't get a goat, maybe you get something else. We've all seen Beer Fest. We know how that magic works. They win the Beer Fest. It's in the name.
So anyway,
ancient German
talking
magic.
about looking up correspondences, don't forget to look up things that are amplifiers or items that are complementary for your spell. So like clear quartz is a great amplifier. It's a very easy stone to get. But also if you want a good way to speed up.
If you live in California, it's on the ground.
Yeah, if you live in California,
everywhere.
It's on the ground. But also if you want a spell to go faster, hot peppers is a good way to do it. If you want a spell to, work faster, then there's a lot of different things you can do. If you're looking for protection, do you also need to look, would it also benefit you to look for things that would help you with courage? Are you looking for only protection, or are you looking for courage? If you're doing a money spell, is just money what you're looking for, or are you also hoping to have a little bit of luck sprinkled in there?
Or success, or something like that. And I would say that I recommend you start working on a list of correspondences that you appreciate or that you value, or find a website that has the list that you like.
Or
so that way you're not having
let us know, because I've been kicking this idea around. Would you guys be interested in a Patreon that has access to my absurdly large and ever-growing list of correspondences?
It's true. It's always updated. It's ever-growing. We could do that. I mean, I could make a website about that.
I've been thinking about...
So much work.
I've been thinking about doing that. It wouldn't be very expensive, but it would certainly
It wouldn't be very expensive, but it's a lot of work for me. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. But let us know if you're interested in access to a pretty advanced sense of correspondences.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And for any of you that are listening from outside of the U.S., first of all, hi, thank you.
Yeah, please.
Our 2 listeners. There are also things that I also include things that you would be able to find in other parts of the world.
Yes,
and without necessarily having to schlep into a Whole Foods or get stuff delivered from Amazon. So the last thing on the correspondences that is often overlooked, or perhaps a bit too romanticized as well, is finding a good time to cast your spell.
On research, not on correspondences.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine. Continue.
Either way.
I knew what you were talking about.
You want to find a good time to cast your spell. Some phases of the moon or even times of day can boost your spell work. Mm-hmm. And that's great if you want to do that. You hear a lot of, like, oh, it's the new moon, got to do the spell for the new moon, or got to do it because it's the full moon. Those are great times for spell work. Now, they don't necessarily have to be the time that you're going to do the spell work. Oftentimes, I'll say, oh, did you know it's the full moon, like tomorrow? Or we'll go outside and literally see the moon. You're like, oh, man, today's the first day of the new moon. That's right. And then we go, oh, we should do that spell that we've been talking about doing. Mm-hmm. And then it takes us a couple of days to get the spell done. And then we finally end up doing the spell.
Maybe it's like 2 days after the full moon, we're doing the spell. Instead of thinking of it has to be done on a thing, think of it as it is most amplified on a thing, right? You can do a spell at any time. You can do it in the day or in the night, right? You can eat green eggs and ham. We know how this works.
I was really hoping that you were going to rhyme that.
Yeah, I thought about it, and then my brain was like, man, you're drinking too much for you to be making up rhymes on the fly. So I decided not to do that and not accidentally rhyme 2 words that literally don't rhyme at all. I'm not a rhymey man.
That's super disappointing. That you did not take that chance to rhyme it. My mind.
It was a risk I was unwilling to take in my current state.
My mind is racing through ways that you could have made your next line rhyme.
Yeah, well, now that I'm thinking about it, dang. But flipping shots fired over here.
Really, the most important thing is to make sure that you're doing the spell at a time that you will be uninterrupted.
Yeah.
That's really the most important.
And that's working best for you, right? Like, if you have a meeting at 5 o'clock in the morning at your business, and you want to do a spell the night before because of whatever reason, don't stay up super late to do the spell. Get some of that sweet sleep, such that you can be prepared for your 5 a.m. meeting. Like, don't make yourself work harder than you need to, and understand that the intention may have more power than the timing that you read about online. Is really the way that I want to say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we've all read that where they're just like, you got to do this at this time because this is transiting this, and it's like, that's super tight. 2 o'clock in the morning seems a little high risk right now, so let's do this at like 10 o'clock at night.
There was recently a comet that passed by us like a couple of months ago, and the comet would have passed by our house, and we wouldn't have been able to see it from our actual house because we live like literally inside of the forest.
Yeah.
But we could drive a short drive to see this comet, and would have had a fairly good view of it, but it required us getting up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and then coming back on a work day and then coming back, and we were just like, this is this is like a once in a lifetime comet. That's fine. We'll just look at pictures.
Sometimes, it's not worth the effort. It's not. It's better that you get the sleep. Humans need that stuff, I'm told.
Yeah, and be okay with
Also,
scaling
sometimes
that
we
stuff
go out
down.
at midnight to look at the moon. So, like, whatever, dude. Live your best life.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's okay also to scale things down too.
Yeah.
It's not whatever deities or spirits you're calling upon to help you assist with this, whatever in the chaos is helping you make this magic work, is not going to be disappointed that you didn't do a full-blown hour-long ritual. Yeah. So now that you've figured out like
you've done your research,
stuff you want to do for your spell, you've done your research. Now you can start thinking about intentions, and this is by far the most important part of your spell work. In fact, there are several types of magical practices where you don't do anything else. It's all in your little mind powers, and it's all in your intention.
Think about your mind palace. Upgrade your mind palace.
Have a mind palace. I don't know where to go with that.
Yeah. Throw yourself a mind palace party. Invite all your pals to your mind palace party.
Would that be an MPP? Are you down with MPP?
You know me, bro.
That was beautiful. Okay, so
total aside.
So set clear intentions. And when you want to speak in affirmations when you're talking about your intentions, you want to use I am instead of I want to something. You basically want to speak it into existence. And speaking in a way that says I want to do this thing is saying I want to do this thing. So you want to use I am, or if you're invoking a deity of some sort, you can say guide me to or help me to, that sort of thing. You want to be, above all, very specific about what it is that you are asking for.
Specific, confident, not an asshole. I know it's crazy that I'm saying this right now, but don't be an asshole to gods. Shit should be self-explanatory. Yeah, don't be an asshole to gods. You're not an asshole to your boss. Don't be an asshole to gods. They're more important. Right? But
less corporeal,
more important. Less corporeal, less corporate, more corporeal. But yeah, you'd be surprised how often I read some stuff about somebody getting spicy with a deity, and it's like, that seems like a high risk move.
I've seen a lot of horror movies. That's how those sometimes start.
Yeah.
So really with intentions, you want to keep that intention as simple but specific as you possibly can. And really you not just want to make it simple and specific, but also a bit realistic. So if you're doing a money spell and you want to win the lottery, saying I will win the lottery, I am going to win the lottery, is great. But did you know that you can win the lotto and win just $2?
That is a whole lotto winning. Yeah.
So if you're looking for a large sum of money, you want to really, want to win it big with the lottery. That's better, but perhaps not as realistic. I'm not saying don't do it, but think about the expense of what it is that you're doing mentally with your magic versus your potential rewards. And you got to think about how, if you're trying to do a spell that's go big on the lottery, what are your odds of actually winning that lottery? First of all, you actually have to play the lotto, I guess, but...
Yeah, well, but you know, that's the thing. If you want to win the lotto, whether you want to use your intentions of the desire to win the lotto, and that's a horrible example because it's the lotto, but if you want to win the lotto, right, you have to buy a ticket. There's a saying, and boy howdy, I don't know precisely how the real saying goes, but functionally, it's gods help those who help themselves.
That's not the phrase I think you were going to go for, but okay.
Yeah, that's fine. But like if you want to win the lotto, you have to buy a ticket. That's how the lotto works, right? If you're trying to do an intention spell of success at your new business venture, you need to participate in venturing that business, right? Just like if you want to find success in a thing, you need to do the thing. If you want to do a spell about a thing and you want to cast intentions about a thing, you need a form of reality involved in this, right? You need confidence, you need intention, and you also need to put in the work, right? And part of that's, I mean, really that's just an extension of the don't be an asshole part. Like, don't be an asshole to deities, right? you're not gonna find a lotto ticket that's the winner. That's just not statistically.
That's what happens in movies. That does not happen in real life.
Yeah.
And if it does,
so if that's what you want to do, buy it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So participate in your own success.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of the intention.
I want to talk a little bit about hexing.
Yeah, let's have a little hex
curses
breakdown.
and shadow work or dark magic, whatever it is that you want to call it.
Yep.
We're just gonna use hexing as sort of the catch-all term for
whatever darkly intended thing you want to talk about.
Yeah. So hexing and curses and dark magic or shadow work are often discouraged by modern practitioners, and this is kind of like one of those hot button topics within the community.
It is
And
very hot right now.
we feel that in order to have the light, you also have to have the dark. That doesn't mean that for every good spell you do a spell about something you don't like, but it is okay.
Yeah, that's not
to
stable.
do that. Yeah,
that's not mentally stable. Listen, I did 23 light spells this month. I've only done 20 dark spells. It's not a good balance. I got to do 3 more.
That's not how
this shit works. Unless that's how you want this shit to work, man. Again, you do you.
I mean, I guess really what I'm trying to say is if you want to hex someone or you want to do some sort of offensive magic, then go ahead, but you need to do that with understanding the full consequences of your actions. And a lot of practitioners say that you can't do that stuff because whatever it is going to come back to you threefold, or whatever that stuff is.
That's often a quoted thing. And again, if your form of practice believes in the like sort of all light, all right sort of a thing, and like no darkness or whatever, that's no hate, right? Like
that's fine.
That's
if you don't want to do it.
Some people only practice internal sort of shadow work to rectify their demons, and that's their magic, and that's their spell work, and that's their craft. And again, that's also fine, right? We're not telling nobody how to do nothing. But for us, in our opinion, in our research, in our studies, and in our practices, right? There's some light in the dark and there's some dark in the light, and both have a presence and both need to be respected. And just like anything you're talking about, we're talking about winning the lotto, which is like big good, and if the thing that you're talking about is something dark or bad or hexy or cursey or shadowy or whatever term you want to use, right? You follow all the same practices, right? You do your research, understand what you're doing, right? Because if, you have the potential for the upset, for that stuff to bounce back to you, or for that stuff to, take something wrong. And it's the same thing when you're doing this, don't be an asshole. Yeah. Right? Well, how many times I gotta say that?
As far as the come back to you threefold thing, I mean, really any spell can backfire.
100%. Yeah.
But because of the generally mental state that you're in when you feel like you have to hex or curse someone, that's probably you're a lot more volatile. It's a lot easier to get off track, and it can certainly be easier to have those spells backfire spectacularly.
Yeah.
That does not mean that when you are casting a non-hex type of spell that it will all just go peachy. Sometimes spells backfire. Sometimes they don't work. Sometimes you cast a spell about something that's good and something bad happens instead. Yeah. It happens. But
chaos is a bitch, dude.
Yeah. But if you are looking to do something that's more of a dark magic, just understand what it is that you're working with. But also really think about it before you decide to do it. So we're not trying to discourage you from doing it. But if you're doing something that would be a hex, then you're probably in a place where you're angry, you're hurt, you're unhappy about something, and you can very easily find yourself in a place where you're going to run headlong into doing a spell like this when you're upset. And performing magic when you're angry or upset or otherwise not in like a nice zen
emotionally
place
distraught is the term I'm
really going to wreak havoc with your magical practice.
Yeah.
So if you decide to do something like that, make sure that you're going into it in a place where you are not outrightly angry, even though the actions or whatever it is that happened that's causing you to want to cast the spell may make you angry. I mean, and we all know somebody who deserves a good hexing, guys.
Yeah.
But just be sure that you're not doing it in the moment because you're upset.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they say in Groundhog Day, don't drive angry.
Yeah.
Don't drive angry.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's like, don't run headlong into a situation because you're emotionally distraught. Do your research, do your studying, and then, execute accordingly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What we have next is...
So, casting the spell, so...
All right, we're back. We've only got a couple sections left, so let's talk about
almost there.
Actually casting the spell.
We've already taken you through the whole process, so now it's time to cast your spell.
Now you have your spell in your little hands, tiny baby hands.
Maybe they're not tiny baby hands. Maybe they're just regular hands.
Tiny baby Robin hands. The superhero, not the bird.
For any of you that watch Teen Titans Go, you'll know what we're talking about.
Man, that show.
And his tiny baby hands with his
tiny
buff calves.
Baby hands and his gross buff calves. And his weird, sexy bird pictures. Yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, this is fucking utter chaos to you. So, good luck, I guess.
Just
Whatever.
go watch some Teen Titans Go.
Go watch some
on
Teen Titans
Cartoon
Go.
Network. We're not sponsored by them, but we love that stuff.
Yeah. We will be if they want to be. Call us
sponsor us.
Something. I don't even know how.
I don't even know. Sponsor us, Teen Titans. Sponsor us, Michael Jelinek.
Yeah, right? Oh, man. We want to be in the show. Make that happen. Go.
Oh, God, I would love that. Okay. Anyway, casting the spell. We are now at the point where we've done all of our pre-work, and sometimes this takes a while. It usually takes me a couple of days at minimum to write a spell. So it's not always something fast. Although sometimes I'm just like in the moment and it's just happening and I'm going. So now that you're ready to put all your pieces together, make sure that you write out your spell and gather your items needed to cast the spell. The importance of this is really that you need to make sure that you can, if you are reading your spell out loud or reciting your spell, that you can read what it is. It's very dramatic to make a circle of candles and everything, and you've got all your herbs and whatever you're using, and then you have your spell and it's printed out and it's in beautiful writing on this cool paper you found. But if you can't read that spell by that candlelight, it is a mood killer.
Yeah.
So
we've definitely done a few rituals where it's like, all right, we've got the fire pit going and everybody's in like a calm place and everybody's got their like the thing that they're gonna burn ready, and we get to start talking and you're like,
we cannot read.
You're like,
what is on our paper.
You're reading the beginning of the ritual, and then you're like turning to try to catch the light from the TV reflected through the window, so you can like read this thing at like a crazy angle or whatever.
And we've definitely
or by
done
candlelight. Holy shit!
Yeah, we've definitely done rituals.
A single candle in the dark is not bright enough to read some shit from.
It's really not.
Yeah. What I recommend if you're gonna write it big. If you're gonna print it, large point font. The first couple of rituals I printed out were in like 9-point font or some nonsense like that. Because I was like, hey, it could all fit on one page this way.
Yeah.
That was a horrible mistake.
Yeah, so, make sure you have adequate lighting. So if you're going to be printing it out, try the large point, try high contrast.
Yeah.
Don't write in red on a tan piece of paper.
You can read off a cell phone.
Yeah, you can also read it off
straight
of
up, dude. Read off a phone. It's way easier.
If you're using like a fun book of shadows, like you can use your phone as a flashlight. Just before you start doing your spell work, put your phone on airplane mode so that people are not trying to buzz you, because that's going to get you. If you've got like a ring light, actually, which is one of the things that we're talking at, then that's a really nice way to do it too. Just make sure that you have lighting, because there is the thing that is going to most quickly sour your mood for your spell is not being able to read what it is that you have written and what you're supposed to be saying.
Or mispronouncing a word because, you can't read which character what letters in that word. Dog, I've done that several times.
So now that you've got all that stuff together and you've figured out the right time and you're ready to go, allow yourself plenty of time to get right into the right headspace. I find it helpful to have extra time beforehand, before I'm even doing any magical stuff, and even during a ritual, to just have time to meditate so that my mind is clear. But also, like, do you want to have like cool mood lighting? Like, it usually takes us a little... when we have people over for a ritual, it takes longer because you have a crowd coming. But if we're just doing a spell with just the two of us, it still usually takes us somewhere between 15 and like 40 minutes to set up for a spell and gather all the pieces together and be in the right headspace, and then we can begin.
It's like cooking. When you watch the cooking channel, you'll notice that they, this is an onion, we're going to use a whole onion, and they cut it up, they put it in a bowl, and they set that bowl just over here. And then they cut up the next vegetable, and they set it out over here. And they do whatever they're going to do with the meat, and they set it over here. And they have all their shit prepared in an area, right? So that way when they're doing the thing, they don't have to, like, come inside and grab a drink and then, like, open that drink and, like, put it in their fancy cup and then go back outside because they ran out of a drink, a thing that I've actually done in a ritual, because we were doing toasts and I ran out of drink because I did too much.
There's some of them that we did a little too many toasts.
But yeah, also, if you're going to do toasts where you, like, toast a thing and take a drink, toast a thing and take a drink, you take very little sips and you have a very large vessel, because... We've done too many toasts before and ran out of drink, and then everybody's having to, like, shuffle in and out and get more drink. It's not a good look, dog.
Yeah.
But you know what? At the same time, if you're doing ritual and that's what happens, guess what? That's what happened.
That's exactly
it's
what
part
happens.
of the ritual now, man. Just do it. Rock and roll. Like,
I mean, really, that's the thing.
Roll with the punches, dude. You don't want to get distracted.
With confidence.
You don't want to lose the sort of, like, thread of the spell. Right?
Yeah.
You want to kind of stay in it. And if staying in it means that you got to turn on your cell phone flashlight, or staying in it means you got to, like, reposition yourselves because you got to use the bigger fire because you can't, the candles just, it's not a good enough candle.
Or you want it
Or you got to go inside to get another drink. You do that shit solemnly. Or you wanted
to do your spell naked. That was another big thing with, like, Wicca books in the 90s and early 2000s, was doing your spells sky-clad, aka naked. And let me tell you, when you are doing...
Shit gets cold sometimes.
When you are doing a ritual and it is like a long one where you're invoking the corners and you've got the mother and the father and you got poetry stuff you're saying, it gets cold.
Yeah.
So think about that before you cast the spell. But the thing is
where you're doing it. Make sure that you got, like, a window closed, or the people outside of the window are okay with that shit.
But
like,
you know, if you feel like something happened and you got taken out of the spell, maybe your dog needed to go to the bathroom in the middle of your spell work, don't be angry. Just do whatever, take care of whatever the thing is that needs to be taken care of. Take your dog outside, put a robe on or something so you're, like, warm if you're getting cold or whatever is happening. And then
add wood to the fire, because the fire in the fire pit, we were
too
drinking too much before we started the spell, and now the fire's out and you can't burn none of the stuff.
And then allow yourself to get back into that headspace, and then just continue with your spell. There's nothing that says that once it starts, it can't be interrupted. That only happens in movies when stakes are on the ceiling.
Yeah. It's too many stakes.
Yeah. So do your spell with confidence and take the time that you need to take to make that spell something that you're happy with. So we talked a lot about preparing for the spell, right? We've got all of our preparing, all of our doing the spell, but what
and we've
happens...
done the spell. We just did the spell. Magic.
Yeah, so...
Now what?
Like, now what? You're looking at post-spell aftercare.
Yeah. And that's just as important as all the setup.
Yeah.
If you're going to set up a big, elaborate series of candles to perform a spell, you have to put those candles out. You plan on sleeping in the future, right? It's the same thing. If you prep a big meal, you have to do dishes, right? If you cast a big spell, you have to take care of yourself. It's aftercare.
Yeah. And I would say the first and most important thing that you should do after a spell is eat something. Eat a small meal or like a snack or something, but you want to eat something.
Yeah,
and that's
calories.
Particularly if you didn't eat during your spell work. During spell work, I actually like to make a small snack, and then I eat some of that snack, and some of that snack I leave as an offering and as a thank you for helping me complete the spell to whatever it is that's helping me.
Plus you get a little snack in the middle of your spell.
Plus you get a little snack. Yeah. And you really want to make sure that you're eating something either during your spell or pretty close afterwards. And that's because you just, like, magic can take a lot out of you.
Yeah.
You just put a lot of effort, a lot of intention, a lot of focus into something you've been working on for probably a while, and it can be very easy to feel lightheaded and drained after a spell, and you want to recover. In fact, sometimes after doing a spell and I want to take a nap, or it's at night and I'm just literally gonna go to bed after doing it. Magic can be quite tiring. And you can experience like a hangover almost.
Yeah, like almost like a magical hangover. Totally.
Which is totally normal. I don't know that there's like a fun term for it, but
I think magical hangover is about as fun as you can get.
I mean,
right?
yeah, I guess magical hangover is a pretty fun term, but I want like something more feeling.
I don't know. I don't know what that is.
So if you feel like a magical hangover, that's totally okay. Again, you've just expended a lot of energy to make whatever this thing happens. And sometimes your feeling of magical hangover is comparative to the complexity of the spell. Having a tiny magical hangover does not mean that your spell was any less effective than having a large feeling magical hangover.
Yeah.
That is not at all the way that works. But sometimes when you're done with a spell, you feel like extra energized and like super jazzed. And if that's the case, then that's great, and just embrace that. But magic is really just like a muscle, and when you're doing magical stuff, it's a lot like doing weight training. You know, you're working a specific muscle, and really in a way you're working a muscle with magic too. And you want to take time for that muscle to recover before you work that muscle group again.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just like, don't overdo it, you know? I say this pretty often on a lot of things, but like, celebrate your own successes, right? Hey, you just did a magical thing that you've been working on. Like, hang out, celebrate it, live in that space. I mean, you ask Julie how often I'm just like, celebrate your successes, dog. They don't have to be big successes. Celebrate small successes. Like, nobody else has got a part. Nobody's throwing you a party, dog. Throw your own party. Throw parties for yourself. Mind parties.
In your mind palace.
That's right. This isn't a thing. I don't know anything about this mind palace shit. I don't know. It's a thing that I started saying today.
We just came up with another shirt, I guess. This is getting
too many shirts.
Problem.
Whoever's in charge of shirts out there, do shirts.
Oh, I think that's me.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's me.
Oh shit, that's a lot easier. I'm the one who has Photoshop on their laptop. Yeah, hey, you're right. You should do the shirts. I don't know how to do that at all. I don't definitely do that for work.
Aside from just like celebrating your, you did the spell, which is always really awesome. Like whenever I get done doing a spell, I always feel like extra cool.
Yeah.
You know, it really like ratchets to that like confidence meter up. But you also want to make sure that you write down what you did in your Book of Shadows. And going back to our 10 tips for a magical new year, our last show, we talked about write it down, and I'm going to continue to say write it down, write it down, write it down. So if you have a Book of Shadows, that's where you're going to want to write down what you're doing as you're doing it.
Or whatever you want to call it, a spell book or like a recording book.
Ideally, you should have two. One is for reference, and one is more like a journal or a diary. So you want to make sure that you write down.
Remember, wizards are always surrounded by like big libraries of shit. So like, do the big libraries of shit thing.
And you can do it electronically if that's your preference, but you should definitely write down what you did.
Star Trek journal.
I write mine in a journal that I got from Target.
Yeah, no, straight up, like it's got started
with like cool erasable pens. It's a problem. So
record everything, man.
Yeah,
you never know what's
down.
Be
write down the spell. Write down what you use for the spell. Write down when you cast it. Write down how you felt afterwards, and then as the spell unfolds and becomes in the ether, make sure that you're writing down any other observations that you have about the spell, how you feel about it, and as your spell materializes, update that later on.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, you know what? Take care of yourself. It's real simple, quick breakdown of what we're talking about here, right? Pretty much anything can be a spell, so just figure out what you want to do and do research, study that shit, do it. Make sure you're doing it with intention, with confidence, all right? With just like an understanding of what you're doing, like an adult, like rational shit. Like don't Don't burn your house down. If you don't have a space that's fire safe, just hold off on the fire thing, man. Do something smaller. Just be safe. It's very easy for that kind of shit to get out of hand. But like, set your intentions, do your intentions, and then when you're done casting your spell, and when you're through with it, write it down, meditate on it, refuel from it, and kind of move on to the next thing.
Yeah, and then
it's an
move on and
unending
cast your next
journey.
spell.
That's kind of the point of it, is to learn and to journey. But just like you're learning and journeying with us, hey, here they go.
Oh, it all ties back in.
It's donkey riding.
Anyway. So that's Spellcrafting 101.
Yeah.
Again, and I know that we mentioned this earlier, but we are probably going to do full shows on each of these components individually. There's a lot to talk about.
I could do a show just on runes. Like the physical Elder Futhark
and
letters.
we will. We don't know exactly when.
Yeah.
Our next episode, though, is going to be about Imbolc or Candlemoss, which is the next of the Sabbats. So look forward to seeing that one or hearing that one in 2 weeks.
Yes, in 2 weeks. This podcast comes out every other Monday.
Be sure to subscribe.
We are on all of the podcasting things.
Yep.
It is a nightmare for me to set up, and I don't even know if I've done it right, to be completely fair. But I had a bunch of friends check for me, so they all say it's working.
Yeah, all of our 2 listeners, we greatly appreciate
Yeah, we love you listeners. You guys are the best. Follow us on social media and talk with us about this stuff. Tell us what you're feeling. Tell us what you're thinking. I'm at Jive, literally everywhere. And Julie's at Goddess Jules.
And if you don't
everywhere.
know where to find us very specifically, you can go to nerdjive.com/links.
Yeah.
And that takes you to how to find us wherever you may be.
Yep. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. You can see our faces while we're talking to you about this stuff, if you're so inclined to listen to our faces for that long. We also do a bunch of other YouTube-y funness. We do some live streaming. Wife does some live streaming on twitch.tv/nerdjive. And I think that's all of the self-plugging.
Yeah.
If you are watching this on something, follow and subscribe to us. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe, share with us your tips that we missed, correct us on the things you disagree with us on. Positive discourse is always good. And either way, I have been John Norgrove.
And I've been Julie Norgrove.
Yeah, and this is the Horn
and Cauldron
podcast. And we will catch you guys on the flip side. Stay frosty. Yeah, maybe I said that last time.
I don't know.
I don't know. I said it somewhere.